Welcome back, everybody. As you probably guessed from the title and the intro, this is what we are going over here today. This is the BFT, or Bulge Front Trunnion 47 from Century Arms. This is their latest offering in the AK lineup, at least that I'm aware of as of the filming of this video. So what we're going to do today, of course, is test out the accuracy on it like we always do with any rifle, see what kind of groups we can get from it, and then go over the rifle piece by piece, because there's some things that differentiate this rifle from other particularly American-made variants out there on the market. And at the end, we'll go over sort of how it's performed and what I think of it overall. But before we do that, let's head out to the range. Before we actually head out to the range, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, because certainly ammo isn't cheap these days, and that sponsor is NAGR. For folks who don't know, they are a no-compromise national, as the name would imply, gun rights organization. They think you should be able to purchase these at your local 7-Eleven, as well as the suppressor to go with it. So if you guys are looking to support, again, a no-compromise Second Amendment organization, definitely check them out. Now let's head out to the range. Now we're gonna see what kind of accuracy we can get out of this setup, and I do have some caveats going on. So normally, longtime viewers of the channel will know that whenever I'm testing accuracy, I typically want at least a 6-power optic. I feel that at 100 yards, which is where the target is downrange, that's kind of the minimum for a good precision type of shot, because on the target, I'm actually aiming at the crosshairs of the lines that intersect. So I'm aiming at a really small target to try to keep the group small. On the gun right now, we have a Primary Arms 3X magnified prism optic in a RS regulate mount. It's a good mount, it's a good optic for general purpose use. In my opinion, it's not great for precision groups at 100 yards. So just throwing that out there, whatever kind of groups we get, if I had a better optic, it'd probably be a little smaller. We have OSS can on there, shouldn't affect anything. And in the gun right now, we have some Red Army standard full metal jacket. And then we have some vellum brass case stuff. It's not matched by any means, but just 2 different loads, and we'll see how it does. We have a Caldwell shooting rest here, which is a real simple setup. And I think that's it. Let's get to it. Might have yanked that last one. You guys know better than I do at this point, because like I said, with this optic, you can't really see the hole. All right, so next up, guys, this vellum brass case stuff. It's Serbian. It's a very high quality ammo. I've shot tons of it. It's got nice sealed primers and everything like that. It's very fancy looking. But it's got a bullet canister, all those things. And we'll see how 5 rounds of this shoots. Again, though, it's just FMJ ammo. It's nothing special from an accuracy standpoint. All right, let's go check them out. You guys have already seen the groups, so you've kind of cheated versus me, but coming up here, not upset about them at all. With that Red Army standard steel case stuff, center to center, we are right at just under 2 inches, so like 1 7/8 inches, which is very good for steel cased Russian ammo. I will take that. It actually opened up with the vellum, and center to center there, we are right at 3 inches on the dot. Interesting to see how this one sort of was horizontal. That one's vertical. I have no idea what caused that. No clue. Anyway, roughly 2 and 3 inch group. I will take that with non-match ammo out of an AK all day. With the accuracy testing out of the way, we're going to start out here at the end and work our way tip to butt, which I know a lot of you guys like. So out here at the end, we do have a 14mm thread pattern. So you guys have probably seen me shooting with the Huxworks silencer on there. No issues at all in terms of bore concentricity, which you'd expect from an American-made rifle, and suppresses it just fine. But from the factory, we do have this slant brake. Slant brakes are better than nothing, in my opinion. You know, some of the AKs out there come with just that barrel nut on there, and this one does give you some compensation. However, one thing about it that I've found, at least me personally, sometimes it overcompensates and will cause my barrel to dip a little bit more than I would like. That said, it's going to vary shooter to shooter. A lot of shooters are still going to have muzzle rise with this thing on there, and it does hide flash a little bit. It's better than a bare nut rather, but not all that great. I personally would prefer a dedicated flash hider, but there's absolutely nothing wrong at all with the slant brake there. It's been doing its job for decades now at this point. Continuing on back, of course, we have our front sight block, and you can see that this rifle is 0. I'll roll in a photo here, and you guys can see that it's not all the way over to one edge, which is an indicator that everything sort of is in line in terms of your rear sight, gas block, all of those sorts of things, that there's nothing really twisted on it like there can be with a lot of AKs that just aren't zeroable. There's tons of them out there from pretty much every manufacturer. This one, though, is pretty darn close to center, which is good. Barrel itself is made out of 4150 steel. It has a medium taper for an AK. There are heavier profile ones out there. There's definitely way lighter profile ones. It's kind of in the middle. Again, for an AK, I believe it has a 1 in 10 twist. All of the BFT47s do come with a cleaning rod, which for some reason I know is a big deal for some folks out there. And they also, at least in free states anyway, or there's not really any free states in America, but in freer states, they will also come with a bayonet lug, as you guys have seen. We've done plenty of shooting with the stabby things on there just to piss off gun grabbers, and I do like that feature for sure. Continuing on black, we have our gas block, which has the sling swivel on the left side, traditional AK in that regard. And then additionally, we do have a vented gas tube. In terms of function, that really doesn't matter, in my opinion, but some folks do dig the aesthetics, so if that's you, cool. If not, you can swap it out with any other AKM gas tube out there on the market, because it is AKM standard, if you will. I realize that's kind of a subjective thing for AK folks, but it will fit other AKM parts. The handguard up here has our vents, as you would imagine, traditional AK style. And then we have this widened portion here on the bottom of the handguard. It is a little bit more comfortable to shoot than, say, like some of the early Wassers that came over that were just straight in that regard. So in terms of ergonomics, a little bit better. That said, again, any AKM handguards will work on there. So if you wanted to throw like a mag pull or an RS regulate or whatever the case may be, aftermarket system on there, you certainly can do so. I would say Zenitco, but I don't believe those are coming over anymore, unfortunately. Continuing rearward on the rifle, we do have our rear sight that has that black oxide finish on there. I should note that the rifle has a very thick Parkerized finish on it overall. It's kind of like old school World War I US rifles, just a thick Parkerized finish for corrosion resistance and those sorts of things. The whole rifle has it, and the sight seems to be exactly the same way. It is a traditional AK leaf spring sight where you can set a battle zero or dial in terms of your elevation with the ladder on there. Most folks are probably going to do best with the battle zero, but if you want to dial it in, have at it. Additionally, right here behind that is our bulged front trunnion. The trunnion itself is forged and bulged, so it's got sort of the elements of like an OPAP or an RPK that is designed for a little bit more heavier use in there and just durability. However, I'm not sure where the actual rivet pattern comes from. Looking around, AKs vary in terms of rivet patterns. If you look at like a Norinco AK, it's going to have very different pattern than like a Russian AK. This one here seems to be unique for a bulge trunnion that I'm aware of anyway. I certainly could be wrong on that. It's possible. Now, why did they go with a bulge front trunnion? Well, according to the folks at Century, I'm just throwing this out there, they say that when shooting brass, because of the way the cartridge itself expands as it goes out, brass case is apparently harder on trunnions than steel case ammo. Now, I could see that theoretically being possible because, again, brass will expand faster than steel, generally speaking. That said, the Yugo folks out there who predominantly used M67 ammunition, which is a brass case ammunition for folks that don't know, in 7.60 by 3.9, they did bulge their trunnions as well. I'm not sure if that's why, but that's what they say. Regardless, in our testing here, we ran almost exclusively steel cased ammo through it, Red Army standard, and had no issues at all in terms of any cracking or anything like that. As you'll see when we open it up, everything in there looks good, looks fine, no issues in that regard. Top cover here is a smooth style top cover, and then on the left side here of the rifle, we do have our optics mount, and you guys saw, obviously, we were shooting with an optic out there. It works fine. We're using an RS Regulate optics mount. No issues at all in terms of lockup. Everything was solid there in that regard. In terms of magazine fitment, we used, I know, Yugo, Romanian, and then mostly US Palm magazines in our testing, and had no fitment issues at all. As you can see here, we have our Tula Bakelite, locks in just fine. No issues in that regard. It's nice and tight, as you should be, with a little bit of wobble because it's an AK, and that sort of is how it works. Our magazine release latch here is extended and a little bit wider than your traditional one. I do like it. I have no issues with it at all. Works just fine. Our selector lever here, I'll just tell you, mine from the factory was insanely tight, like insanely tight. Like it took like all of my fingers on there to get it to move, even with the enhanced tab on there. So as many of you guys may know, with AK pattern rifles, that's not uncommon from the factory, and just a little bit of bending will make it a little bit more malleable and easy to operate. Everyone has a preference in terms of how easy they want their safeties to be. Some folks want them to be stiff because they feel it's safer. Other folks want them to be a little bit looser, so that way, especially if you have an extended control like that, you can just easily flick it off safe and get to fire and then put it back on. That's kind of where I'm at. Some folks like them even looser than this. Not me. This is kind of where I want it. It's a little bit tough to put up, but easy to put down. That's kind of where I like my AK safeties. So continuing on back, we do have the RAK trigger. It's Century's in-house made trigger, and it's a nice trigger for an AK. I'll pull it with my thumb so you guys can get an idea of it there, but it has pretty much a constant take up and not a predictable break. That is a pretty common thing for AKs. And then if we run the action, you'll see that's our reset all the way at the end with no trigger slap, which is exactly what you want. And then again, take up, break, single stage, of course. And the RAK triggers have been around for a while. I haven't heard of any complaints of them out there on the market. All the rivets look decent on the rifle. There's absolutely nothing to complain about there. You guys probably are seeing some images being rolled in there, but I don't see anything wrong with the rivets, which is nice for a stamped gun. I should also add that this rifle's receiver is thicker than most. It's a 1.5 millimeter receiver versus a traditionally 1 millimeter stamped AK receiver. So everything's kind of beefed up. And then our buttstock here is wood, and it's a traditional Warsaw pack length. So for some US shooters, you might find this a little bit short, but again, it's AKM compatible. So any of your aftermarket accessories that you want to put on there in terms of buttstocks will work. Same is true with our grip here. Again, traditional Warsaw type of grip, but if you want to throw like a Magpul MOE on there, you can do so without issue. Disassembly of the rifle is standard AK stuff. You may have noticed while I was shooting out there that we put some duct tape on the rear here of our spring, and the reason for that is with a Warsaw length stock, a lot of times during recoil, it will hit my shooting glasses and scratch them, which annoys the crap out of me. So I do that with a lot of AKs, particularly if they have a Warsaw length stock. But disassemblies, of course, you're just going to push it in, take our top cover off. Like I mentioned, it is a flat versus a ribbed top cover, and then our trigger there was forward because of our testing we were just doing. We're going to remove our spring, as you guys can see there, nothing too crazy. And then our bolt and carrier assembly, this one here has the lightning cuts on it. Some folks like that, some folks don't, is what it is. Our bolt itself here looks pretty darn good. This rifle right now has around 700 rounds of ammo through it. Again, almost all of it being Red Army standard steel case ammo, and the wear marks on it look good. No crazy peening at all that I can see. We have some back here on the tail where it starts to mushroom out. I would imagine that's probably because of the trigger interface hitting it as it goes through recoil, but that basically happened after about 200 rounds and then didn't look any worse, so it seems to have sort of settled down. But you guys can get a look rather at some pictures here of what everything looks like. Hopefully they're rolling in, but I don't see any issues at all in terms of undue wear. Same is true here on our bolt. Everything looks normal. When I got the rifle in, I did clean and lubricate it. I know for whatever reason on YouTube, some folks don't do that. I do it with all my rifles and pistols. It just seems to be the normal thing to do. So sometimes people always say that my wear doesn't look as much as theirs. That could be why, because I do like to keep the rifles lubricated. So, and then of course, removing our handguard and our gas tube assembly rather is just that easy. Everything goes on there just fine. No crazy wear marks on the inside for you AK Union folks out there in the Pirates Club. And again, everything as you look in there, no undue wear that I can see of any kind. Sometimes you look for chipping up there on the front right of the trunnion. I don't see any. Everything looks pretty good in terms of the amount of rounds we have through it. So of course, testing will continue after the review, but as of right now, nothing crazy in terms of wear. Now that we've reassembled the rifle, there's a few things I want to touch on before closing the review out. Number one, this rifle was sent out to me by the folks over at Century. Just full disclosure on that. So they didn't pay me or anything like that. They don't get a first look at the review, or they don't get to influence what I'm about to say later on, in my opinion of what I think of it overall. but they did send it out, just full disclosure on that one. Like we said, about 700 rounds. We've had a grand total of 0 malfunctions of any kind with the rifle. Again, running US Palm and surplus mags with predominantly that Red Army standard. No issues at all. So cannot complain about that. You guys saw the accuracy. It sort of speaks for itself. If you guys are interested in this rifle and see how it'll do at long range, of course, we only took it out to about 380 yards. Rob over at the AK Operators Union has a video on his channel doing some shooting out there out to 500 yards, and obviously he's a very, very good shooter, and it shows you what the rifle is capable of in terms of accuracy. So let's talk about some cons, right? Because we talked about some feature set here. There really is only going to be one, in my opinion, that I have seen thus far, and that is going to be the barrel. So the barrel is made out of 4150 CMV steel, which is great. A lot of barrels are made out of that. However, it has that phosphate finish on it. Me personally, in terms of durability, particularly shooting steel jacketed ammunition, I would rather see that be nitrided or chrome lined. One of the two, I really don't care. But in America, it's generally speaking, from everyone I've talked to who makes barrels, which is a lot of people, less expensive to nitride it. And I think for folks that aren't shooting machine guns and are just shooting, semi-automatic rifles like we have here, nitriding is perfectly fine and will likely outlast you and the rifle. Now, with that caveat, I should say that even 4150 CMV steel shooting 7.62 by 3.9, which is slower than 5.56, so if you're trying to compare barrel erosion and those sorts of things, you'll very likely never see an accuracy degradation with normal use of this rifle. That said, if there's guys out there that are liking to do a lot of training, a lot of shooting, things like that with their rifles, I would imagine, this is totally a wild guess and is going to vary depending on your shooting cycle, that if you get north of 10,000 rounds on this rifle, you're going to start to see some accuracy degradation with a normal firing cycle, like you're not just mag dumping into trash, if you will. And nitriding would probably double that. So I would like to see that. But other than that, the only con I can think of to this rifle is the fact that it is not lightweight. So like I said, the barrel is not super heavy profile, but the bulged trunnion and that heavier receiver makes the gun heavier than a standard AKM would be. On my scale, it came in, I believe, at 7 pounds and 9 ounces unloaded. So that's heavier than most of your traditional AKMs. But is it worth it to, is it worth it to you to have that beefed up trunnion and the beefed up receiver? I don't know. That's up to you guys to decide. Ultimately, I cannot decide that for you. Now, in terms of price point, again, these are all American-made products, which some folks in the AK community hate, some folks in the AK community love. Again, that's kind of going to be up to you in terms of what you prefer, but the MSRP on the gun right now is coming in right around $830. Store prices, of course, will vary, but in terms of price point for an American-made AK, it's pretty much what you can expect as of this point when I'm recording anyway in 2022. It's price competitive with most of the other offerings out there on the market. And if you look around, this one's been out for, I don't know, probably about a year now. I haven't seen any crazy reports like we did with the RAS-47s with a lot of issues and things like that. I haven't seen any issues out there on the forums with these guns. I've heard people, say negative things about them just because that's what people do with American-made AKs, but I haven't seen negative reports of actual performance from folks that own them, which is a good thing. It's a good sign at this point because, again, it's not like it's a brand new rifle. They've been out for a little while, and none of that stuff has surfaced like it did, again, with the RAS-47 when those were first released. So with that, I think we will pretty much close the video out. I'm running out of sunlight, as you guys can probably see. If you guys like this video and you're not subscribed, definitely hit the subscribe button. If you are subscribed, you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, and you've hit the notification bell, you can sign up for my email at the website on your screen right here. This will have, will go out once a month, and it has all of the videos since the previous email went out, so that way there's no social media giant censoring your eyes from my content. Additionally, should this go on sale or anything like that, we will send it out in the daily deals email. As the name indicates, it's an email that goes out virtually every day. Sometimes I miss a day, but it's rare. And it has 6 or 7 of the best deals that we find around the internet, and basically guns, gear, etc. And if it's in that email, it's the cheapest that I know of anywhere on the internet on that particular day. So that way it saves you guys some time and hopefully saves you some money as well. And that's pretty much all I got for you. If you guys have any questions about the rifle, anything like that, you can post them down below in the comment section. And I thank all of you for watching. I truly appreciate each and every one of you watching these videos, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.